Now, does that mean finally this corrupt, crooked witch hunt could be coming to an end? Well, I have my beliefs, and I'll tell you in a second. Also, Sarah Carter is here with new reports on the massive story we broke last night. Victoria Tunsing, the lawyer for the Uranium One FBI informant, is now confirming her client was interviewed last December by the FBI because there is an active and ongoing investigation into the Clinton Foundation. Now, this informant is saying that he has proof of a Clinton Foundation quid pro quo. That's huge news. Now, this breaking news information is in response to a coordinated attack by congressional Democrats yesterday to discredit this informant. And also brand new, the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, he is now strongly considering appointing a second special counsel to investigate FISA abuses and bias within the FBI. And, of course, deep state Obama administration officials should be very worried tonight. Also, President Trump pardoned Christian Saucier. You may remember, he's the former Navy sailor. He spent a year in prison, had his entire life ruined. What? For daring to do only a fraction of what Hillary Clinton did with her private email server? And also breaking this hour, Fox News reporting the House Intel Committee, they are demanding answers about the phony anti-Trump dossier from a former Obama administration official who is married to a high-ranking Fusion GPS employee. And we'll expose the media's absolutely reprehensible coverage, 91% negative, of President Trump's big foreign policy victory with North Korea. All of that, the focus in tonight's breaking news opening monologue. All right, we have big breaking news tonight. Wall Street Journal just out with a major report. Here's the headline. Trump lawyers seek deal with Mueller to speed end of Russia probe. Now, White House sources, they're pushing back on some aspects of the story, but here is what we are being told at this hour. Negotiations are underway on how the president will be questioned by the special counsel, Robert Mueller, and they are close to now determining what is going to happen. My interpretation of all of this, it means this witch hunt could finally be wrapping up because the president would be the last person that Mueller would want to talk to. And by the way, to me, that means that a conclusion is probably coming soon, and that would mean, yeah, Donald Trump did not collude with the Russians. A big development we're following closely tonight. And also more breaking news on a bombshell development that we broke on this program last night. Sarah Carter will join us. She has new information about the Uranium One informant that is said to have proof of a Clinton Foundation quid pro quo. Now, Victoria Tunsing, who will also join us, the lawyer for the informant, is revealing that her client, William Campbell, was interviewed in December of last year by the FBI in Arkansas as part of an ongoing investigation into the Clinton Foundation. Ongoing. Now, because the information this informant has, Democrats preemptively in the media, they're now trying to discredit this informant who spent decades of his life serving his country. You have congressional Democrats releasing a memo yesterday to The Hill trashing this informant, William Campbell's credibility. Now, these smears were then picked up on and published by liberal outlets like the Washington Post, predictably CNN, Fake News, Reuters, and Yahoo. Now, here's the one thing that none of those organizations ever reached out to Victoria Tunsing for a comment. Now, we're going to give her a chance to defend her client completely against an untrue smear. What this is a partisan left-wing attack just designed to protect Hillary Clinton, her foundation, and what they did. It never made sense to give 20% of our uranium to Russia. And the left in this country, they know this FBI informant. He was in Putin's network. He has damaging information on the Clintons that potentially could send them to jail. So they're lashing out. Now, Victoria Tunsing, Sarah Carter will have the details. That's coming up tonight. Now, we also have new information on another major breaking news story. Special counsel Jeff Sessions, he's continuing to suggest that he is strongly now considering doing what we have been saying for a long time needed to be done. That would be appointing a second special counsel to investigate rampant FISA abuses and abuse within the FBI and the DOJ. Here's what we know. The FBI lied to the FISA court by using an unverified dossier bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton to get a warrant to spy on an associate of the Trump campaign during an election. The FBI broke the FISA law, and they also did not follow the Bureau's own protocols by relying heavily on what was something that they themselves should have verified and corroborated. Now, remember, former Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe, he's testified without the dossier, they wouldn't have even had a FISA application. A huge development, major scandal. I know the media ignores it. They'll have egg on their face. And another breaking story tonight, President Trump finally has issued a pardon for Christian Saucier. This is an issue we've talked about for a long time. You might remember our extensive coverage of this case. Now, Saucier is a former U.S. Navy sailor. He was convicted of a felony and imprisoned for a year for, quote, mishandling classified information. He took a few photos where he worked inside a submarine, 40-year-old submarine, that were discovered on Saucier's discarded cell phone. He didn't give it to anybody. Now, this became a huge issue on the 2016 campaign trail, highlighting a major disparity in our criminal justice system. Remember, Hillary Clinton mishandled an enormous amount of top-secret, special access, classified information on that unauthorized private server. And then she deleted 33,000 subpoenaed emails. And she received no punishment because James Comey, Peter Strzok and company, well, the fix was in and they rigged the outcome. Now, meanwhile, Saucier did a fraction of what Clinton did. He was sent to prison for a year. And thankfully, President Trump today, and rightly today, he corrected this injustice, and Christian Saucier can now move on with his life. Now, even more breaking information to tell you about. Fox News reporting the House Intel Committee, they are sending 10 key questions about the dossier to 2 more Obama administration officials. One of them, who worked as a key advisor for Barack Obama and Joe Biden, is actually married to a senior Fusion GPS employee. Now, this is drawing comparisons to demoted DOJ official Bruce Orr and his wife Nellie, who worked on that fake news dossier for Fusion GPS. Now, the other official served as a former national security advisor to Biden, so this scandal is getting bigger and bigger by the day. Now, the House Intel Committee Chairman Devin Nunes revealed earlier this week that he has received some responses about the dossier from some top Obama officials. Others, so far, refusing to comply. So Nunes is now threatening to issue subpoenas, which he should do. And finally, President Trump's major win with North Korea is sending the media into a hate-filled frenzy. The partisan press is absolutely going apoplectic over the fact that President Trump's peace-through-strength approach with dealing with little rocket man Kim Jong-un is now yielding positive results. We may have peace in the Korean peninsula. Now, this breaking news that the president is agreeing to meet with the North Korean dictator to discuss denuclearization is now apparently aggravating and incensing liberal lapdog media people as they're physically and mentally incapable of reporting any positive news about this president. Watch this.
Is a roll of the nuclear dice. In some ways, the president kind of got boxed in here. He couldn't say no to this invitation.
I think the entire foreign policy community and a good deal of the informed public freaked out last night when they thought Trump was actually going to get in a room with this guy with no conditions and start talking.
We've just given Kim Jong-un something for nothing.
I'm very concerned about what this administration would be willing to barter away.
Why hasn't any other president ever done? Should I take that to mean that this might be a particularly risky or even an unwise move? But this is the president we have, and he said yes to North Korea.
Yeah, but he's not sending $150 billion in cash and other currencies, and he's not giving billions of dollars to the North Koreans. He gave nothing. But the destroyed Trump media, they love the policies of appeasement of Barack Obama and President Clinton, both of which have failed. At this point, it wouldn't be surprising if the media literally awarded Neville Chamberlain, a Profile and Courage Award for capitulating in his negotiations with Adolf Hitler in Munich. Like we have been saying, the media cannot stomach a leader that believes in peace through strength and stands up to dictators. All they want a president to grovel and cower and kiss Kim Jong-un's rings. President Trump is proving he won't do that, and as a result, he's winning. He got every condition he needed, and a discussion, about denuclearization would be good for the world. He's not going to repeat the absolutely idiotic and completely foolish mistakes of both Clinton and Barack Obama. Now, back in the 90s, Bill Clinton came up with a brilliant idea. Let's try and bribe Kim Jong-un's father, Kim Jong-il, with billions of dollars in energy subsidies with the hopes that the North Koreans would abandon their nuclear program. President Clinton actually took a victory lap on national TV, patting himself on the back for brokering a great deal for the American people. He was wrong. Look,
This is a good deal for the United States. North Korea will freeze and then dismantle its nuclear program. South Korea and our other allies will be better protected. The entire world will be safer as we slow the spread of nuclear weapons.
Now, Bill Clinton's massive foreign policy blunder set the stage for North Korea to actually develop nuclear weapons, billions wasted, and he is directly responsible for the current situation we face today. Then, of course, there's President Appeasement himself, Barack Obama. He tried to outdo both Neville Chamberlain and Bill Clinton with a timid, feckless policy of appeasement towards Iran and the radical mullahs that are calling for death to America. The same people promising to wipe America and Israel off the map, who burn American and Israeli flags. In other words, they hate our guts. That didn't stop Obama from orchestrating one of the worst deals ever in the history of mankind. Now, the appeaser-in-chief, he gave Iran $150 billion while still allowing them to spin their centrifuges. Here's Obama surrendering to the radical mullahs, in case you're interested.
Today, after 2 years of negotiations, the United States, together with our international partners, has achieved something that decades of animosity has not. A comprehensive long-term deal with Iran that will prevent it from obtaining a nuclear weapon. This deal demonstrates that American diplomacy can bring about real and meaningful change. Change that makes our country and the world safer and more secure. This deal is also in line with a tradition of American leadership.
Now, unlike Neville Chamberlain, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama, President Trump is refusing to give even an inch when it comes to countering North Korean aggression. Watch this.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire, fury, and frankly power, the likes of which this world has never seen before. If he does anything with respect to Guam or any place else that's an American territory or an American ally, he will truly regret it. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime.
Yeah, fury and fire for Rocket Man. And here's something the abusively biased news media will never tell you. Well, since the 1990s, Donald Trump has been warning about the growing threat posed by North Korea. Take a look.
These people in 3 or 4 years are going to be having nuclear weapons. They're going to have those weapons pointed all over the world and specifically at the United States. And wouldn't you be better off solving this really potentially unbelievable, and the biggest problem, I mean, we can talk about the economy, we can talk about Social Security. The biggest problem this world has is nuclear proliferation. And we have a country out there in North Korea, which is sort of wacko, which is not a bunch of dummies, and they are going out and they are developing nuclear weapons. And they're not doing it because they're having fun doing it. They're doing it for a reason.
And also tonight we have even more proof exposing the media's anti-Trump agenda. Now, according to the new Media Research Center study, 91% of ABC, NBC, CBS's evening newscast coverage about President Trump was negative in January and February. 91%. I've told you back a long time ago, journalism in America is dead. What we have now is a media that is only an extension of the Democratic Party. They regurgitate the talking points. Their singular purpose is to do what? Destroy President Trump at all costs, and the truth be damned, and all of these statistics prove it. Now, in the media's efforts to delegitimize, damage this president, they have all but blacked out any positive news coming from the White House. Just look at today's economic data. February's job numbers smashed expectations. 313,000 new jobs were created. That's the best monthly gain in over a year and a half. And since President Trump took office, 263,000 manufacturing jobs have been created. And a record 155 million Americans are now in the labor force. And here's a statistic the media will never tell you about. According to the Heritage Foundation, 64% of President Trump's agenda is already complete. That's faster than President Ronald Reagan himself, which is astounding. The media doesn't care. Instead, they're only hyper-focused on advancing their bizarre conspiracy theory about Trump-Russia collusion that has no evidence of ever happening. There's no evidence, has been no evidence. Now, while the media has been literally taking you, the American people, down this conspiratorial rabbit hole for over a year, here's what they've missed. Take a look at the side of the screen. Those are all of President Trump's accomplishments. Have you heard the media ever talk about any of these? I doubt it. The media spent the past year and a half trashing the president at every single turn. They absolutely refuse to give this administration credit for anything. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, nonstop, constant attacks, and a lot of lies. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. And sadly, well, it's only going to get worse. The more successful the president is, the harder the media is going to try to destroy him. All right, joining us now with reaction, former White House press secretary Sean Spicer and former deputy assistant to the president, Fox News national security strategist Dr. Gorka. Sean Spicer, just look at these numbers. 3 million jobs have been created. America now is on a path towards energy independence. He's gotten rid of more regulations than any other administration in record time. His tax cut deal is done. The employer mandate is gone. And lo and behold, Rocket Man's going to sit down with the president. Who would have thunk it?
ISIS is on the run. Border crossings are down. The judiciary is being remade with conservative judges. He's standing up for life. I mean, we could go on and on and on. The president's continuing to rack up results. And one of the things that's interesting, Sean, and you touched on this, but the bottom line is that as he gets results, they try to talk about chaos and process. At the end of the day, most Americans care whether or not their country and their lives are improving. And they are. The president continues to chalk up results. They're making this country a better place. They're making it safer. They're making the economy better, giving more people jobs, higher wages. And what people will vote for at the end of the day is to make their lives, the lives of their family, the lives of their neighbors, and the lives of their fellow citizens better. The president's achieving those results, and I think so what happens is the media then turns and tries to figure out how can we focus on the process story? How can we talk about chaos and things like that, as opposed to the results? The one thing that I think is really interesting, Sean, is that President Trump is doing exactly what he said he would do on the campaign trail. Washington is littered with with politicians that make promises over and over again and then don't fulfill them. President Trump's doing exactly what he said he was going to do, and he's getting the results that he said he would get.
Yeah, and after 8 years of Obama, 13 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty, lowest labor participation rate since the 70s, worst recovery since the 40s. He doubled the debt, lowest home ownership rate in 51 years. It's all rebounded in a year, and the tax cuts are only now just kicking in, Dr. Gorka.
That's the most remarkable thing. This isn't even 14 months into a Trump administration. The kinds of things that this administration has achieved, you'd be proud of them if you were an 8-year double-term president. And Sean's absolutely right. Look, the obsession with process, if this is chaos, Sean, give me more chaos. Give all Americans more chaos because it's bringing the results. And at the end of the day, Sean...
But isn't the chaos... America elected a disruptor.
Yes.
America elected an iconoclast.
Look,
you know what? I don't think most Americans are going to vote that they don't like Donald Trump's tweets if they have $3,000 more in their pocket a year.
Right. Look, Sean, let's just say one thing. We lived it. Sean and I lived it inside the building. The more they attacked us and the president, the more we knew we were doing what the people elected the president to do.
The one thing that's interesting, though, is that the American people are onto this, right? If you look at the ratings that came out, look at the programs where American people are tuning into. They're tuning out the mainstream news, and they're tuning into shows like yours and Tucker's and Laura and other shows on Fox because they're tired of not being told what's going on. The American people understand what's happening, and they're changing their viewing habits to match with what's being fed to them because they don't want to see these other stations that overlook this and focus on the process and the chaos.
Guys, thank you both. We appreciate it. Have a good weekend. We have more breaking news tonight. The attorney for Uranium One informant, Victoria Tunsing, joins us with Sarah Carter. Why? Because we discovered there is an ongoing investigation into the Clinton Foundation that nobody knew about. We'll tell you next.
This is a Fox News alert. I'm Will Carr. A hostage situation now in its 8th hour at the largest veterans home in the country. The standoff started just after 10 this morning in Yountville, California. Authorities say a man armed with a rifle walked into a party. He let some guests leave, but held 3 at gunpoint. Witnesses then called 911. Police swarmed the area and a deputy engaged the suspect. The two exchanged a number of gunshots. Neither was hurt. Tonight, SWAT teams and hostage negotiators are still on the scene. It's unclear if the suspect or the hostages have been injured. Authorities say they do know the gunman's identity, and they've tried calling his cell phone numerous times. The veterans home houses around 1,000 vets, some of whom served in World War II, others who are disabled. I'm Will Carr in Los Angeles. Now let's get you back to Hannity.
All right, welcome back to our special news breaking edition of Hannity. Joining us now with a lot more is the attorney for the FBI informant, Victoria Tunsing, Fox News contributor, Sarah Carter. All right, as I look at this with Douglas Campbell, so here's a guy, Victoria, your client, that literally put his life in jeopardy for decades in his life, serving his country. So he gets it. He has access to Putin operatives in America. We know because he's reporting back crimes, bribery, extortion, money laundering, kickbacks. And he knows and discovers that Putin's operatives inside America, that they, in fact, would like to get a foothold in the uranium industry. So an article comes out, leaked Democrats trashing your client, but we discover that, in fact, he's so credible that FBI agents in December in Arkansas that are looking into the Clinton Foundation, in fact, interviewed him. But the big revelation is there's an investigation into the Clinton Foundation.
Correct. So
explain.
Well, what the Democrats said is just lies. Mr. Campbell went up to the Hill and he told the staffers from 3 congressional committees that the Russians bragged and bragged and bragged repeatedly about how much influence they had with the Clintons. In fact, they said they were really confident that they were going to get the approval to buy Uranium One because of the Clintons. And they were so confident that they opened up a new office, Sean, 10 months before the CFIUS approval. That's how confident they were, so they could accommodate the new business. But let me tell you something else. He specifically told the members, the staff, of the quid pro quo, and that was about APCO, the lobbying firm in Washington that has all these former Clinton staffers on it. And he said the Russians told him they were giving APCO $3 million, it's above my lobbying fee for a year, to do some work, but to do in-kind work for the Clinton Foundation. Now, that's a quid pro quo right there.
Well,
as a former federal prosecutor, I could take that to the jury.
And we've reached out to them, but you know what? You can always follow the money in these cases. Sarah, you know this informant. You've met with this informant. This informant now has gone before 3 congressional committees. But the notion that we suspected, we thought, we believed, but now we know, there is an FBI investigation into the Clinton Foundation.
That's right, Sean. There is an open FBI investigation into the Clinton Foundation. We know, number 2, that he was questioned by FBI agents investigating the Clinton Foundation. And he is credible because why? He spent more than 30 years collecting information for the United States, for the U.S. intelligence community, and for the FBI. And the FBI had him on this case for 6 years. Back to some of the statements that he made to congressional staffers, which I think is valuable and important here. He spent those 6 years taking briefs for the FBI, writing them out, daily briefs of his conversations with high-level Russians.
And they knew about the felonies. They knew these were Putin operatives. They knew Putin's goal was to get a piece of the uranium market. They knew all of this. Everybody knew.
Absolutely, they knew all of this, and they were using that to continue their counterintelligence investigation into Russia and eventually to seek criminal charges. This is the one point I want to make about all of this. We opened in the United States, there was the second special counsel became embedded into what we're doing when George Papadopoulos opened his mouth at a London bar. This man collected 6 years of information on the Russians, and there was no second special counsel, and instead we cut a deal with the Russians. So you tell me how the two match.
The Democrats fault Mr. Campbell for not knowing that the Clintons got extra goodies at the time that they got him, because he didn't know about the $500,000 speech that Bill Clinton got by a Russian capitalist firm that were promoting Uranium One stock. $500,000 Bill and Hillary Clinton got. And they said, well, he didn't know about that speech. Well, no, he didn't. He found out about it later, and he told people when he found out about that and the $145 million that Uranium One stockholders gave to the Clinton Foundation, that he said that fits the pattern. That's like the APCO case.
By the way, all of this belies the lie of Clinton's, oh, this has been debunked. There's an ongoing FBI investigation.
Yes.
Thank you both. We're going to stay on this topic, and we will follow it to its conclusion. We'd like to know what the FBI knows and how far this investigation is going. When we come back, we will expose the left's ties to one of the most racist and anti-Semitic people in America, Reverend Louis Farrakhan, something members of the mainstream media should be doing but are afraid of, as we continue. All right, as we continue the special news-breaking edition of Hannity, tonight an investigation into the bigotry of the left. So when are prominent Democrats and Women's March organizers, when will they denounce Louis Farrakhan, who's one of the most hateful, racist, anti-Semitic people in America today? And why did the Congressional Black Caucus pressure a photographer to keep this photo of Barack Obama and Louis Farrakhan a secret before the 2008 election? Now, we're going to cover all of that and more in tonight's mini monologue. All right, we've been following a story that the Daily Caller broke earlier this week about 7 Democratic lawmakers having ties to Louis Farrakhan. Now, this list includes Representatives Maxine Waters, Keith Ellison, who's also the deputy co-chair of the DNC, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, Danny Davis, Andre Carson, Gregory Meeks, and Al Green. Now, these alarming connections to Farrakhan are causing the Republican Jewish coalition, rightly, to call on these lawmakers to resign. Now, those members of Congress aren't the only liberals that have relationships with Farrakhan. We'll have more on that in just a second. Now, Tamika Mallory, she's the co-chair of the Women's March. She actually attended a recent Farrakhan event. It was called Savior's Day in Chicago, where he said these despicable things.
The powerful Jews are my enemy. White folks are going down. And Satan is going down. And Farrakhan, by God's grace, has pulled the cover off of that satanic Jew.
He has only a history of this kind of racism and anti-Semitism. Now, Tamika Mallory, she posted on Instagram about the event, and according to the Anti-Defamation League, Farrakhan actually gave Mallory a shout-out during this speech. Now, after intense backlash, Mallory is out with a statement where she apologizes to the various groups of people that Farrakhan routinely and viciously and hatefully attacks, but then she also defended her attendance. And she writes in part, quote, I didn't expect my presence at Savior's Day to lead anyone to question my beliefs, especially considering that I have been going to this event regularly for over 30 years. And she continues, where my people are is where I must also be. I go into difficult spaces. I attend meetings with police and legislators, and the very folks so much of my protest has been directed towards. This is an utterly ridiculous argument. Now, you can't attend Farrakhan events for over 30 years, like Mallory has just admitted, and then all of a sudden pretend to be surprised and learn that he spews vile, hateful, racist, and anti-Semitic rhetoric. Now, this is what the left does every single time. They hang these people out, the radical left-wingers, they hang out with them, and then either flat out deny their relationships or they just pretend like it just isn't a big deal. For example, let's look at how some of those 7 Democratic members of Congress are reacting to being exposed to having these ties to Farrakhan. Now, Congressman Keith Ellison, well, he told the Washington Post, oh, none of my colleagues ever asked me about that, only reporters. I'm telling you, no one cares. Pretty disgraceful. And this is the same Keith Ellison that accuses Republicans of being racist and for years has been trying to dodge and downplay allegations of anti-Semitism. And of course, Ellison, he's not alone. Back in February, Congressman Danny Davis told the Daily Caller he's not bothered by Farrakhan's position on, quote, the Jewish question. And Congressman Davis has previously told the Daily Caller that he thinks Farrakhan is a, quote, outstanding human being. And Danny is now changing his tune and denouncing Farrakhan. Now, we reached out to all 7 members of Congress for comment. They all ignored us except for Congressman Gregory Meeks. He directed us to a tweet where he condemns Farrakhan's anti-Semitic statement, but then goes on to attack President Trump. As for the other members of Congress, well, that are not denouncing their ties to Farrakhan, the Daily Caller is reporting that Maxine Waters, Barbara Lee, Andre Carson, Al Green have all attended meetings with Farrakhan while serving as members of Congress. And by the way, take a look at this. It's a stunning video that shows Maxine Waters, Barbara Lee, Al Green all hugging and shaking hands with, yes, the racist anti-Semite Louis Farrakhan. And according to the Daily Caller, this happened in 2006 during an event in New Orleans. Now, for years, these members of Congress have been able to maintain relationships with Farrakhan because most members of the media give them a pass. There's no accountability, no punishment for hanging out with hate-filled extremists. In fact, it's become a defining characteristic of the left, including former President Barack Obama. Now, we told you how Obama sat in the pews of the Reverend Wright's church, you know, the Church of GD America, for over 20 years, how he launched his political career inside the living room of unrepentant domestic terrorists Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dorn. Given that information, this 2005 photo of Barack Obama grinning ear to ear with Louis Farrakhan, it shouldn't be a surprise. Now, the reason you never saw this before the election in 2008 is because the photographer who took the picture says he was pressured by the Congressional Black Caucus to keep it a secret. And the photographer also says that he thinks that this photo would have made a difference in the 2008 election. I believe he's right. This photo would have further exposed everything we were uncovering on this show about Barack Obama and his radical, rigid leftist beliefs and friends. We did reach out to Obama for comment about Farrakhan's comments. Not surprisingly, we didn't hear back from his spokesman. And here's the most important question about this. If Farrakhan isn't that bad of a guy, like several Democrats are claiming, then why is it necessary to hide a photo of him with Obama? Maybe it's because Democrats didn't want you to be reminded of Farrakhan and his history of hate. This is just a small sampling. Take a look.
Here the Jews don't like Farrakhan, so they call me Hitler. Well, that's a good name. Hitler was a very great man. There were many Israelis and Zionist Jews in key roles in the 9/11 attacks. Because you see, white people deserve to die. That's right. And they know, so they think it's us coming to do it. There is no human being on earth that has murdered more living things than the Caucasian. He's a murderer and a liar. Then soon we're going to sit at a table and talk about we tired. We want some of this earth. We'll tear this goddamn country up.
All right, here now with reaction, Fox News contributor Herman Cain. Herman, simple question, not complicated question. Imagine somebody that racist, anti-Semitic, that hateful, and a picture with Donald Trump.
A friend of mine recently shared something with me that describes Farrakhan and his hypocritical, racist rhetoric, and that is, stop dreaming of a better yesterday. He is talking in the past, living in the past, and unfortunately, too many people are also embracing his racist, hypocritical rhetoric. And here's something no one is talking about. He attacks the Jews because he doesn't want to alienate all black people. But what he is unaware of is that some black people will not embrace his hypocritical, racist rhetoric. For example, he makes the statement that the Trump administration, for example, has all white people in charge of everything. Have they heard of a guy by the name of Ben Carson? And as soon as Ben Carson openly criticized Obamacare, he got on what is not really written called the Black Folks Blacklist. Ben Carson got put on that list. His hometown newspaper criticized him. I am an ABC, an American, black, conservative, and I'm probably on that list also, Sean. But what they don't know is that many black people aren't living in the past. They're living in the present and what the future can be.
You're also on the SHGA list, the Sean Hannity Great American list, if we're going to come out. How is it that these congressmen and all these people associate with this guy, and there is zero coverage, zero condemnation? Because if it was a Republican associated with anybody similar, it would be the biggest news in the country. How is that possible?
It is possible, Sean, because these organizations are afraid to criticize a black personality like Farrakhan. I didn't say he was a good personality. And then when you have black members of Congress who affiliate with Farrakhan, they are afraid to attack them because they don't want to be accused of being a racist. That's how they get away with it. But the thing that they don't realize is they now represent the minority of people who think like that. And that's probably the best news about all of this racist rhetoric that he and the people that support him are trying to basically promote.
All right, Herman, great to see you. And when we come back for over a year right here on this program, we have been breaking story after story while members of the mainstream media turned a blind eye. Joe Concha and Dr. Gina Loudon will join us straight ahead.
I'm Sarah.
This is a Fox News alert. I'm Will Carr. A hostage situation now almost in its 9th hour at the largest veterans home in the country. The standoff started just after 10 this morning in Yountville, California. Authorities say a man armed with a rifle walked into a party. He let some guests leave but held 3 at gunpoint. Witnesses then called 911. Police swarmed the area and a deputy engaged the suspect. The two exchanged a number of gunshots. Neither was hurt. Tonight, SWAT teams and hostage negotiators are still on the scene. It's unclear if the suspect or the hostages have been injured. Authorities say they do know the gunman's identity, and they tried calling his cell phone numerous times. The veterans home houses around 1,000 vets, some of who served in World War II, others who are disabled. I'm Will Carr in Los Angeles. Now let's get you back to Hannity.
All right, over the past year right here on this program, we have been bringing you important breaking stories about deep state scandals. It should concern every single American. You might remember some of these moments. Investigative journalist Sarah Carter from Circa News will join us in just a minute. Now she, along with her colleague John Solomon, they have confirmed the existence of, in fact, a FISA court warrant order granted in October of 2016, just weeks before the general election. I want you to remember very crucial words, 4 words: surveillance, unmasking, intelligence leaking. We even have real evidence that the FBI uncovered a Russian plot that involved, we have real evidence, bribery, extortion, blackmail, money laundering, racketeering. They knew in 2009, that was 1 year before Hillary Clinton and the Obama administration approved this corrupt Uranium One deal. The FBI, top echelon, not rank and file, lied to a FISA judge about Clinton and the DNC. They never told the judge that she paid for these Russian lies in this dossier. That was then used to get a warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. Now, sadly, some of these stories still are not being covered by the mainstream media. The question is why? Joining us now from the Hill, Joe Concha, and radio talk show host Dr. Gina Loudon. Dr. Loudon, you know, it's a pretty simple, fundamental issue. I think one of the greatest abuse of power corruption scandals we've seen. They don't even touch it, especially in light of what we learned about how the FISA warrant was based on everything Hillary Clinton, you know, bought and paid for that turned out to be false Russian propaganda.
Yeah, you look at the media, and every single measure, Sean, the lamestream media that isn't covering the real news in a fair and balanced way is losing. Their numbers are at an all-time low approval rating, while shows like yours that are covering it and just telling the truth, uncovering what we're all seeing happen out there, your ratings are going through the roof. It doesn't make any sense except to say that you can always tell how big a score the president has or anyone on the right has by how apoplectic the media is the next day in their coverage of it. That's literally how most Americans measure news these days.
You know, Joe, I don't see any excuse for not covering this. You cover the media. It's inexplicable to me. Your thoughts?
Well, Sean, there are two kinds of bias, right? There's bias in broad daylight, and that's where you see an anchor or a host or a pundit openly rooting for a side or against a side, and we see a lot of that. But then the more sinister kind of bias is the bias of omission. And the media research study that came out a couple of days ago that analyzed the evening newscast. Remember, evening newscast seen by 25 million people every night, supposed to be unbiased, supposed to be nonpartisan, but yet they found that 91% of coverage of this president and the administration is negative. And then you look at the stories they cover versus the ones they don't. And one breakdown was 204 minutes total on CBS, ABC, NBC went towards special counsel Mueller and the Russia investigation. Compare that with the economy and jobs, which is always the number one issue that people vote on. That got 12 minutes. If you're breaking that down, that's about 20 times the coverage to Russia and Mueller. And then you even look at the more, I don't know, sensational stuff like the Michael Wolff book, we remember. That got 53 minutes on ABC, CBS, NBC. And ISIS, where 98% of the caliphate has been destroyed, that only got 11 or 5 times less. So the priorities are all out of whack. And because of the bias of omission, we're not hearing about the stories that people actually vote on and care about most.
So do they eventually get embarrassed when a special counsel is appointed?
Do they get embarrassed when the special counsel was appointed last May? I mean, this has been,
now that we're learning that everything we've been reporting is now being corroborated. It was 1 year ago yesterday on this program we broke the story that a FISA warrant was issued against the Trump campaign. Everybody laughed at it. You know, they laughed at the president when he tweeted about it. But we were right.
And that FISA warrant obviously led to the special counsel. It obviously to the wiretapping, I should say, or whatever term you want to use in that situation. And that story doesn't get covered, just like it